We've been waiting so long, the season's finally here. Soak it up and cheer, cause Timberwolves Talk is here. No need to fear, the wait is now gone. So farewell so long, cause Timberwolves Talk is on. Yeah, Timberwolves Talk is on.
I will absolutely be a fan of bass holes now.
All right, guys, welcome to this edition of the Timberwolves Talk Podcast. We're here on 11/16/2021 with a special guest of the show, Darren Wolfson. How you doing, Darren?
I'm certainly not special, Chris. Good to be on, Peyton, with you as well. What's up, bass holes? Appreciate you guys having me back. So apparently, last time you had me on many, many months ago, I must have not effed up anything too badly that you actually invited me back. Or it might be a situation where you guys swung and missed on a number of guests. Like, did you reach out to Dane Moore? Did you reach out to Johnny Krasinski? Did you reach out to Sachin Gupta, Glenn Taylor, Mark Laurie, Alex Rodriguez? Maybe all those individuals told you no. You went down the list. You came to my name and said, let's give Doogs a shot. I said, yes, here I am.
Well, that's not the case at all, Darren. You're the number one person on our list, and you responded, and here we are.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Peyton.
Well, I got the first question for you. It's been a pretty disappointing start to the Timberwolves season so far. 4-9 so far. There's been a few good things to build on, but overall we haven't really been able to string together many good games. Do you still believe in the Wolves, or is it time to ring the alarm?
Well, probably both. Now, we may be having a different conversation if they end up losing to Sacramento and San Antonio the next couple games, but I still think there's a logical path to them being the 10 seed, maybe even the 9 seed. So for them, because the bar is so darn low, for them to be that 9 or 10 seed, get into the play-in tournament. Now, it might just be one game. It might be a one and done. But for them, that would be progress. So I still think there's actually a logical pathway because the bottom of the Western Conference is so crappy, like New Orleans. No chance. We don't even know when Zion will be back. Oklahoma City is playing hard. I've watched some of the Thunder. They play really, really hard, but they're not making the playoffs. The Houston Rockets are not making the playoffs. So you look at 15 teams in the West. We just eliminated 3. Okay, so that leaves 12 for 10 spots. So we're talking about Sacramento, San Antonio, Minnesota. We'll have to eliminate 1 or 2 of those teams, right? But I think Minnesota can be better than Sacramento, can be better than San Antonio. But yeah, when you lose at home to Orlando, when you lose at home to New Orleans, when you have the struggles that they've had offensively, when you've had the struggles they've had in fourth quarters, yeah, there's a reason for concern. But I still think they can get over the Vegas over-under. What was the Vegas over-under total? 34.5 wins. I never thought they would go way over, but I think they can get the 35, 36, maybe even 37 wins. That would be unbelievable progress for this franchise.
Yeah, most definitely. Kind of easing into that too a little bit. So there's no chance this team is sellers by the deadline. Do you think their only possibility is being buyers?
Well, how do you define seller? They have a bunch of expiring contracts. Do I think? And, I spent some time with Sachin Gupta a couple weeks ago. So I think I have a decent sense. Do I think he's married to Patrick Beverley or Taurean Prince or, Jake Layman? Those are expiring contracts. They could trade all those guys, to use your term, sell those guys, but does that mean that they're sellers per se? I don't think Sachin Gupta is trading Anthony Edwards anytime soon. I don't think he's trading Karl Anthony Towns. Otherwise, I think everybody is on the table. So, do you want to look at that as buyer, seller? I think Sachin Gupta is open-minded to many possibilities. He still badly wants Ben Simmons, but if it's not Ben Simmons, it can be some other, power forward type player. Certainly they need to add some size. They are the smallest roster in the NBA. Sachin is well aware of that. And so he knows he'll need to add size at some point, but you can move one of these expiring contracts or multiple expiring contracts, bring back somebody that can help you, yet you're not giving up any future first round picks that messes with the future. So I don't know, buy or seller. Like, I'll tell you this much, Chris, like Sachin Gupta has been on the phone. He's trying to be active. It's still really early though. The saying is it takes two to tango. So as much as Sachin Gupta would love to make a trade right this second, not many franchises want to make any moves right now. Typically, they want to wait at least 15 games, if not 20 to 23 to 25, before formulating really strong opinions about their roster. Now, there are some teams like Detroit, like Oklahoma City, like Houston, where they know they're not going to win much beyond 21, 22 games. In fact, I was on the phone a couple hours ago with an executive with one of those, aforementioned franchises. He said, like, we know we're not winning more than 20, 21 games this year. So they've accepted that. They know that they are in a complete rebuild. But if you're the Wolves, like you can trade some of these guys, bring back some bodies that can help you now, potentially help you next year too, if they're under contract, if they too aren't expiring contracts yet. Hold on to those future first-round picks. Now, if you're making a move for Ben Simmons, I can promise you at least one future first-round pick is going to Philadelphia, or if it's a 3-team trade, going somewhere else. You're not acquiring a player of Ben Simmons's, talent without giving up at least one future first-round pick.
Yeah, and I noticed you mentioned Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns as untouchables. So is D'Angelo Russell a possible trade piece in that Ben Simmons deal, or are they holding out on that for now?
Chris, until I hear otherwise, and I promise you, like, I don't say this randomly, loosely, Philadelphia doesn't want D'Angelo Russell. They just don't. Now, I'm not suggesting like that he doesn't have any fans in the league. Do I think the Wolves, if they wanted to, could move D'Angelo Russell? Yeah, I think there's a team or two that would have some trade interest, but I think there's more teams that are opposed to acquiring D'Angelo Russell than actually that want him. And I can just tell you, until I hear otherwise, and I've checked for many months, I've checked multiple times, there is 0 sense that Daryl Morey and that Philadelphia front office, that Philadelphia coaching staff has any interest in acquiring D'Angelo Russell.
What do you think a potential trade package then that the Wolves could send over for Ben Simmons would be at this point?
Well, I mean, Peyton, you look at the expiring contracts, expiring contracts always have value, so when Pat Beverly is trade eligible, Beverly, Prince, then you've got young assets like Jayden McDaniels. He has fans in the league. Leandro Bolmaro, future first-round picks. I mean, to me, if you're acquiring Ben Simmons, you're giving up at least 2 future first-round picks. So, you're looking at giving up multiple draft picks, plus at least one good young asset. Maybe it's not both McDaniels and Bolmaro, but let's say Jayden McDaniels. Then you're giving up, some money to make it work. Malik Beasley is another contract that's sitting there. He's not making shots, but I don't necessarily hate his shot selection. His defense has actually been a little bit better. Eyeball test to me, his defense has been a little bit better than in years past, but much like the Wolves, like the bar for Malik Beasley defense is so darn low. Like you give any, effort on the defensive end to me, it's going to be better, but he has been better in my mind defensively. But I mean, those are the type of assets you're looking at, but that's what also complicates things. Like Philadelphia doesn't really have interest in Beasley, right? So that's where you need to maybe find a third team. Can a third team send Philadelphia a certain player? Then you send, something to that third team, but the draft picks end up in Philadelphia. It starts to get complicated, but let's not forget Sachin Gupta, creator of the ESPN trade machine. I promise you, he knows how to get really, really creative.
Definitely. Kind of switching topics a little bit here. Peyton and I were super high on Jaylen Noel last year, and it was especially apparent his scoring off the bench at the end of the year was like a big reason why the Timberwolves started winning some of those close games, I think, along with Malik. Do you have any insight on why he would not be playing as much this year?
Well, I mean, the insight is look at Malik Beasley's contract. Look at Jaylen Noel's contractual situation, non-guaranteed contract. Guarantee doesn't kick in until January. Like if the Wolves wanted to, they could cut Jaylen Noel right this second. They don't owe him any money. To me, that would be a very foolish move. Chris, I would I would play him. Like, and I'll totally admit my bias. I spent some time a couple summers ago with Jaylen. We talked for like 45 minutes. He ended up playing basketball on the playground with my two kids. He could not have been any nicer. He told me about, his background, battling borderline depression at different points, spending a lot of time with the Wolves team psychologist, just talking through things. That was right at the start of the pandemic. In fact, it was like, pandemic started, March of 2020. I think I ended up connecting with Jaylen like June of 2020, something like that. So actually more like 18 months ago, a couple summers ago. And I love the kid, and he was the Pac-12 player of the year. You know how hard it is to be the conference player of the year in the Pac-12, yet he was that. We saw what he can do in actual NBA games last year. You're right. Like I would give him an opportunity. I think he's a player. I really do. And the way Malik is shooting the ball, I'd bench Malik. But it's a little bit easier for me to suggest that in my position than to be Chris Finch and the rest of the coaching staff and that front office after giving Malik, that 4-year contract. 4th year is a team option. Essentially, it's a 3-year, $44 million contract. That would be a lot of money just to have ride the bench. That's also a guy with a track record like we saw last year. You mentioned how good Jaylen Noel was last year. How about Malik Beasley? Malik Beasley was really good offensively last year before the injury, before the suspension. So there's a thought, hey, this is only so far a 13-game sample size. There's a little bit of an adjustment with the new basketball. Let's give this some time, that this player has earned the opportunity for him to, have a longer leash than 13 or 14 games. I'd like to think that, the other night we only saw Finch play, 8 guys. Maybe early in the season you can play, 10 guys. Extend that rotation beyond, typically it's 9. Maybe go to 10. Have that 10th player be Jaylen Noel. So I'd like to think the two could coexist, Beasley and Noel, that there are opportunities for both to play. But to answer your question, in my opinion, Noel deserves some run. And I know some people close to him are scratching their heads saying, hey, look, the Wolves aren't winning games. Why wouldn't you try to mix things up? Give this kid who has proven he can play, give him more of an opportunity.
Yeah, Jaylen Noel, he's the type of player, he can get a shot off at any single time. He's almost instant offense. The next player I want to touch on is someone you've alluded to earlier in this talk is Balmero. Do you think we're going to see any Balmero minutes coming up in this season?
Yeah, I think eventually, Peyton, maybe March, April. I think he's going to lighting up the G League a bunch. He lit up the G League last night, not as much as McKinley Wright, by the way, one of my guys, but Leandro has blown the G League away. He's frankly wasting his time in the G League, but G League to the NBA, enormous jump. He still has a ways to go to earn NBA minutes, but I think the future is bright for Leandro Balmero, but I don't think he's getting any meaningful minutes anytime real soon. I don't. I think those meaningful minutes for the foreseeable future will come for the Iowa Wolves. Then if the Wolves are out of it, or if they've clinched, the 10 seed or the 9 seed, maybe those last couple games of the regular season, we'll see Balmero get some run, but I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Yeah. And another name to add to that too, I think, is Nathan Knight. And it was really interesting to me last night with the loss to the Suns, not having Naz Reid. I thought Nathan Knight would for sure be a plug-in off the bench. And that was interesting how they went with the two, Jayden McDaniels and Vando bench lineup in the 8-man rotation.
Yeah, and Josh Okogie played a little bit before he got hurt. And Josh, unfortunately, Josh can't make a shot. Nathan Knight in Atlanta last year had a pulse at different points. We saw how good he can be summer league. And I get it's just summer league, but Nathan Knight is a legit NBA player. Now, I'll also say there are players not in the NBA right now that are legit NBA players. To me, there are more NBA players than there are jobs available. That's how many good, talented players there are worldwide. Nathan Knight, to me, falls under that umbrella that he's an NBA talent, but in his situation on a 2-way contract, they want to give some other guys more of a look. But I'd like to think at some point, based on what he did for the Atlanta Hawks last year, that Nathan Knight will earn some minutes. I'd like to think that he could help them at some point.
Yeah, and speaking of bigs on the team, Jayden McDaniels, I mean, his start to the season's been pretty rough. Even when he comes off the bench, he still is managing to average 4.2 fouls a game. Do you think what is it? What's happening with him? Is it mental right now, or is he really just that foul heavy?
Well, he's drawing some tough assignments, like
right
from the Brandon Ingram, go down the list, Peyton. But it is interesting because league-wide, fouls are down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe that'll change as the year goes on. But, like, overall, through the first, 13, 14 games compared to years previous, fouls are down pretty good. But, yeah, with him, he's committing foul after foul. I think a lot of it is matchup-based. I think he's drawn a lot of really tough assignments so far. I still like him a lot. They got to find different ways to allow him to put the ball on the floor, and get creative that way, as opposed to him just standing in the corner, ball to launch, a 3-point shot, catch and shoot. Like, I'd like to think, and we saw it at times in the summer, that he can put the ball on the floor. He can do a little bit more. So that's on Chris Finch. And I'm a Finch guy. Heck, in fact, his name came up with this NBA executive I was talking with today. He's like, Chris Finch, good coach. And I'm like, yeah. And like, I've talked to JB Bickerstaff about Chris Finch, some others in the league that I know previously that have worked with Chris. They've all told me, like, the dude is a brilliant offensive mind. He's an offensive savant. Yet we haven't seen it. Like, the Wolves' issues right now are so, keyed in on the offense. Like, their defense has been really good. It's the offense that has been horrendous. Their half-court offense has stunk. Chris Finch is known as an offensive coach. And so, Chris, like, come on, like, figure it out with Jayden, figure it out with, last night, Karl Anthony Towns, barely touches the ball. Final 5 minutes. To me, that's on Finch. He had a really bad challenge in last night's game. Like, Chris Finch is struggling a little bit right now, but I will give him the benefit of the doubt based on all the people I know in the league that really, really know how good of a coach he is. I've yet to hear, I'm just telling you, and I tell you guys, if I've heard on background, like, what were the Wolves doing hiring Chris Finch? I've never once heard that. Like, I've heard so many positive things about the guy. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, give him a little bit more time. But through 14 games or whatever it is, 13 games, 4-9, Chris Finch has not been a good coach so far.
Yeah, and I think
he was good last year. He has not been a good coach this year.
I think the problem is, and he's talked about this in post-game interviews for sure, is trying to get all the big three all involved at the same time, because it seems like they do. One of them goes off for a little bit and then another one and then the other one, but they can't really get it going together at the same time. Do you have how do you think they can do that? Get Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and D'Lo all going at the same time? Is it possible?
Well, and it's been a lot of hero ball, right? I mean, it's been a lot of dribble, shoot, dribble, pass, shot. Not a whole lot of ball movement. I think it starts with some ball movement, some actions in that regard. Like, I like the mix of Karl Anthony Towns shots last night, right? It was, 8 or 9 3-point shots. It was 8 or 9 2-point shots. Then he ended up at the free throw line for a season high, whatever it was, 11 or 12 free throw attempts. So, he found something with Cat last night. But yeah, how do you get all three going at the same time? They all are ball dominant, right? Like, they all want the ball. Is there enough ball for all three? Peyton, I'm not a good enough X's and O's schematic mind to, like, lay it out for you. I can tell you that all three need the ball in their hands to be effective. And so it's an interesting, problem for Chris to solve. Like, I don't have all the answers. One could argue it's a good problem to have when you have three guys of this skill set. Now, again, we can debate D'Angelo, but certainly Ant and Cat, like, to have these guys, not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, they got to find a way to get all three involved, all three going. I mean, Ant at times last night looked like he was just going through the motions, forced some shots. I mean, Ant still has a long way to go shot selection wise. I didn't like all of the Russell shots, final few minutes last night, but, like, I thought most of them were pretty good looks. Right. And he's a pretty good shooter. He's not a playmaker. He's not going to help you on the defensive end, but D'Angelo Russell is a really good shot maker. So, like, a lot of the shots didn't necessarily bother me. What bothered me was they didn't find a way to get Cat touches. But I do think it would start with ball movement. I don't think they're a very good ball movement team.
Yeah, I would agree there.
Yeah, it does seem like that at times. We kind of harped on it a little bit, and I know we talked about this last season too. Cat did go to the free throw line, the season high for free throws that game, but I'm still noticing this season. I don't know if it's just me like honed in on it. I still see the complaining after the calls. And I think last game it was more apparent than any game this year. And I don't know if I don't know. I thought he said he was going to stop it. I don't really know if that's just kind of almost ingrained in him now.
I think he has controlled himself maybe better than he has the last couple years. But I think once you have that reputation, it's hard to break. Like, think about it last night. I don't know if you guys saw Lakers Bulls and how Anthony Davis, was bending down to tie his shoe, and the ref hands the ball and lets action happen. Like, there had to be something personal there.
Yeah.
Like, what was the ref thinking handing the ball to that Chicago Bull to essentially start a fast break, right? Because Anthony Davis is tying his shoe. He wasn't in a position to go play defense. So essentially the ref gave the Chicago Bulls a fast break. There has to be something personal there with that official. I don't remember what official it was, but like something had to be going on in that official's mind, right? To give that Bull the ball. And it had to be something against Anthony Davis. And I think some refs have it out for Karl Anthony Towns, that there's a bad reputation there. And I think it'll take a while for him to repair that. But I actually think he has controlled his emotions a little bit better than he has in the past. Not all the time. He got teed up last night, so not all the time. But I think he's actually done a better job. I know many people have talked to him about that. But I think with certain officials, once you're on their bad side, it takes a while to get on their good side and get the benefit of the doubt. And so I think that's where Cat is with that. So I think it's going to be a while before we see him getting a lot of calls. He's got to control his emotions, just has to. And he has to bring it more in the defensive end. It's not all him, but last night there were times where I thought DeAndre Ayton, got the best of him too often. And I hated to see it, and he's eligible for the big money extension, in the summer. And I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, a player that's 7 feet tall with that skill set is a max player. But will it make financial sense for the Wolves to make him that max player, or would it be smarter for the Wolves to start shopping him before they have to make such an offer?
Those are some really good points. And I know you got to get out of here soon. So one last question. We haven't really talked much about Anthony Edwards, but he had that huge 48-point game, and then he's also had a few inconsistent games. What does he need to do this season to really get out there and get out of this sophomore slump he might be experiencing?
Get to the hoop more, get to that left hand. I'm okay with him missing some shots at the rim. He's going to miss some shots at the rim, but keep being more aggressive. I just think he settles for even the 3-point shot. I think he settles for too much. I just think he's such a great athlete that he can get to the free throw line more than he is, and he's been more engaged on the defensive end. He had the preseason goal of 2 steals a game. He certainly has been more active in that regard and with block shots. I thought he had a really excellent block in last night's game, but on the offensive end, to me, it's shot selection and being more aggressive in terms of driving it to the hoop. And he's so good with his opposite hand, that left hand. Keep going to that left hand. I think that's his pathway to success. I know he wants to be an all-star badly, wants to be an all-star heck this year. I don't know if it'll happen as soon as this year, but he's got all-star ability. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And so keep attacking the rim. Get to the free throw line 8 to 10 times a game.
Most definitely. Thank you so much for your time, Darren. Like we said, every single time it's a pleasure. You're number one in our book, no matter who's out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris and Peyton. The check is in the mail for those kind words. At some point, I'd like to think I can come on and we can talk about a winning team.
I hope so.
Team that wins more often than it loses, because even if they get to 36 or 37 wins, that means they're going to end up losing 43, 44 games. So they're going to end up losing more than they win. It's a roster that still has warts, unfortunately. It just does. You can't win when you're the smallest roster in the NBA. So it's still a roster that needs all sorts of work. So that's what makes it fun on my end. Because Sachin Gupta is going to try like heck to to remake the roster in some way. So I'll certainly be tracking it.
Most definitely.
Right. Well, thank you, Darren.
All right, take it easy, gentlemen.
See you. All right, guys. Darren Wolfson there. As always, just love having Darren on the show. As you guys can see, he's one of the best in the business, especially with the Timberwolves, with the Vikings, Twins.
All Minnesota news, man. He covers all the sports in Minnesota, high school, college. He's a great guy.
A lot of good insight from that talk. You heard him, if we had a little bit more time, I would have liked to bring up he mentioned there cat at the end.
Yeah.
Selling. I don't.
Right. Yeah. We might not even extend it. That was an interesting point he brought up. Yeah, I thought there's some very interesting points brought up in that interview. Chris, I think we should touch a little bit. I know you gotta head out here in a few seconds. I think we should touch a little bit on that Suns game. Just a tad. I mean, what were your thoughts on that game? Because I feel like there was so many moral victories, but in the end we took the L. So was it really worth it there?
I thought the team played hard. I think that was the heir apparent thing. Besides Anthony Edwards for a couple quarters, I think the whole team was definitely into the game. I don't think that was an issue. I think the moral victory of this game is showing that we can hang with the Western Conference final contender.
Right.
I mean,
and they're coming off a huge win streak too. Besides their one loss the game before they played us, they were on like a 6 or 7 game tear there. So it's the same story though. I don't think there's really anything different from our previous losses. I think it's dumb fouling and I think it's bad shot selection. And at the end of the day, those two things combined against a really good team is you're not going to win a game. Yeah, we touched on it with Darren, but those technical fouls, man, I know the players think that's getting the crowd into it. That's getting everyone fired up and stuff.
Cat was hyping up the crowd when they were chanting refs suck. What'd you think of that? I
mean, he could have got teed up for that too. I thought that was just,
and he would have been out.
It wasn't worth it, man. It honestly, like if you looked at what that swing did, we had a lot of momentum that didn't really turn into anything. And we ended up, if we would have had those 2 points that we gave up on those technical fouls, I think we would have won the game. It's simple as that. Were those technical fouls really worth it to do that? I mean, Anthony Edwards, obviously he's getting hacked, but you got to learn to control your emotions. Obviously it's an emotional game and it gave us some momentum. But if you look at it at the end of the game, man, we could have won that game.
Yeah. 2 out of the 3 big 3 weren't playing. Guess no one's interested in D'Lo, man.
I guess
start playing a little bit better.
That was interesting too, man.
And the Philly wasn't interested in Malik either. What the hell would we
right
trade?
Now? Who would be
Jayden 3 first?
Well, why would you trade for Jayden right now either? He's a foul machine. And it seemed like at the end of that Suns game, at some points the Wolves were playing against the refs rather than playing against the Suns.
That was their choice, honestly.
And man, as long as I've been playing basketball and as long as I've been following the game of basketball, refs are people, man. If you're complaining to the refs and if you're calling out the refs, hyping up the crowd about the refs, they're going to start looking for fouls for you. And they're going to start giving you less fouls. They're humans, man. If you're bitching out the refs that crazy, they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. If you're flying around.
Cat literally just started screaming, man.
And then it builds on it because then you're going to complain even more of the refs, take yourself out of the game. And you're not playing against the Phoenix Suns. You're not focusing your energy on the Phoenix Suns. You're focusing on the refs. And you can't just keep playing the victim role. It gets sorry.
It is getting old, man. It seems like a lot of people on this team.
Yeah, you can't be the victim all the time. You got to go out and win the game and just play against the other team, not worry so much about the refs. Get the crowd into the game by getting dunks and steals. That's how you need to get the crowd into it, not having them yell, refs, you suck. That's just my take.
Be like CP3, man. Just keep your mouth shut, make shots. That's all we want to see.
Yeah, I'm sorry to rant there, but it really frustrates me when you end up losing such a tight game, but that was such a big part of the game, and these games are they're really getting tough on my mental health, Chris. I have intramural games on Monday nights starting at 9:30, so I usually have to miss the last 4 minutes of the game. So last game we were up by 5, I think, when I started walking down to the old gym for my intramural game. As I'm walking down, I'm refreshing the score. The lead's getting down. And by the time I get down there, we've lost the game. It just, I don't know how that happens, how you can play such a great game all the way up to the 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you just can't close it out.
I don't know, man. It's interesting how many ways they found to lose.
Right.
I
and
don't know what to say.
the thing is, we Chris Finch at the end of the game. Obviously that was a really quick talk we had with Darren. We didn't really get to break down much, but I thought Chris Finch had two great calls at the end of the game. He had that baseline out of bounds play, which he has struggled with. Chris, he has struggled with baseline out of bounds play. And I don't know if that was D'Lo who read that perfectly and got that wide open two. Just beautiful. And we've came at Chris Finch for his out of bounds plays before. So that was a well drawn up play, gets the quick two. And then on that last shot for D'Lo, man, D'Lo's a great shooter. You're giving him a great shooter, a great shot, a chance to win the game. He missed it. But again, that's a great shot. So we're in the right positions to win. We just can't pull it out. And we just have to keep taking these moral victories out of here, Chris. So it's hard on the mental health for sure.
That it is, Peyton. That it is. What a fun episode today, man.
What a fun episode. We're going to be back with you guys tomorrow night at 6:50 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be live streaming the Sacramento Kings game, which should be a win. And yeah, we hope to see as many of you guys in there as possible. Hopefully we'll have some nice sound bites to take out of this interview. And you know what, guys? Have a great rest of your night. I think we'll be rest of your day. We're going to be posting this on Wednesday. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great rest of your day.